Hi everyone. Hi you guys. Welcome to this session. This is IIM Bangalore. We are covering the UG courses. My name is Abhilasha and today we are going to be doing a reading comprehension masterclass. So if you've never done reading comprehension or if you have and you've never written a competitive exam where there was reading comprehension as part of your exam, well, then this is the right place for you to be. We are going to be talking a lot about reading comprehension, all the things that reading comprehension entails for any exam and more specifically for IIM Bangalore, the UG courses. You do know that IIM Bangalore has launched a couple of courses, one in data analytics, one in economics, and both these courses will have the entrance test on the 13th of December. So 13th of December, that's the D day. And on that day, you get this test. The test is very exciting and interesting. All right, before I begin, guys, can you quickly give me a yes or no if I am audible and or visible? Am I audible? Am I visible? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Give me that quick check. And also, if you can quickly hit the like button, that'd be great. Also, if you have friends and family who are also writing this test, share the session with everyone and also subscribe to the channel, right? Because if you subscribe, you can participate in the live chat, otherwise, you cannot. So, do remember to subscribe to the channel. Also, guys, remember that once you've subscribed and hit the bell icon, you will always be able to get notifications of any further sessions, right? So, that's something that we want. All right. For any inquiries, of course, you can connect at 8130-038-836. And that's the beginning of our session. So today, my name is Abhilasha, and I'm going to take you through reading comprehension, all the things that you need to know, want to know, everything about reading comprehension that's possibly, there. Okay. All right. But first, what are the key dates for admission for academic year 2026-2027? The application window opens on the 3rd of October, third week of October to 20th of November 2025. The admission test is on 13th December 2025, which is Saturday. Interview window is 22nd to 31st of January 2026. The offer releases on 28th of February 2026. The last date to accept the offer is 31st March 2026. And the release of the waitlist happens on 15th of April 2026. All right, so that's your IIM Bangalore. Now, the syllabus, of course, for the IIM B UG 80, which is the undergraduate admission test, is NCERT 10th, 11th, and 12th grade syllabus. The duration of the test is 120 minutes. The format is it's a computer based test with 60 multiple choice questions. English comprehension will have 15 questions, quantitative and DI will have 30 questions, logical reasoning will have 15 questions. There is negative marking, 1/3 marks will be deducted for incorrect responses. Okay. All right. Now, let's understand what the VRC section will be all about. So, there are 15 questions that should be part of the VRC section. Out of these 15, you will have reading comprehension, you will have grammar, you will have usage, you will have vocabulary. There may be para-based questions, so verbal ability questions also. Now, within this, you may get one shorter, medium sort of a reading comprehension with 4 to 5 questions. Then you will have different types of questions in the other remaining questions, which would be para jumbles, para completion, then error identification, sentence replacement, idioms, synonyms, antonyms, word meanings, closures, error spotting, and all of these different types of questions. Now, VRC section is not just about memory. It is a combination of your memory, how well you understand ideas, what are the tone, what is the logic. There has to be a lot of interconnectedness within the various topics of VARC. It cannot be that you learn one thing or just one thing and then you're able to, do very well in this section. So if you want to really do well at VRC, number one, you must start thinking in English. Don't just study grammar rules, don't just learn our vocabulary. read every day, build your vocabulary, use the language, learn how grammar works in real sentences, how vocabulary words have to be used. All of these habits form the base of your very strong VARC skills, right? So that's a bit about the VARC section. Today, of course, I'm going to take you through reading comprehension. Now, what is reading comprehension? The words reading and comprehension by themselves are sort of self explanatory, right? Reading comprehension is nothing but a combination of a particular passage with a certain, you know, what should I say? With certain number of questions. And those words and questions together sort of form the base of this question, this type of question, which is called reading comprehension. Now, in reading comprehension, of course, you can have different sort of passages, you can have different sort of passage lengths, and you can have different types of questions. So, what is it that we should understand from reading comprehension? What are the types of questions? Let me take you through a few of these things just so that you understand. Now, for if you are to understand what reading comprehension would be all about, let's take a moment and try and see what reading comprehension would be. Okay. So, if I'm to look at reading comprehension, guys, so passage is given to us, and within that passage, of course, we are expected to solve these questions, right? So let me open up a page and we'll talk about this. So here you are. So of course, reading comprehension. What is reading comprehension? We've understood it. So you get a passage, okay, and you're supposed to read that passage. Okay, that's number one. And two, solve the questions that are given, right? So your task is to read the passage and then solve the questions that are given. Okay. And then number three is that you choose the right option and mark your answer, right? Choose the correct option and mark your answer. Now, within this, there are many things that you need to understand. Number one, what are the types of passages that you could have? So, there are many types of passages that you could have, right? A passage in an exam like IIM Bangalore could be descriptive in nature, right? When I say it is descriptive in nature, what I mean is that the passage will talk about the details of something, details of whatever the passage is talking about, with a lot of description. So, a lot of adjectives and adverbs would be given, right? So, the descriptive passage will sort of be a feast for your senses. It will talk about, detailed descriptions of everything. So that's one type of passage. The other type of passage is the analytical passage. And most of the passages in all exams are based on this. The analytical passage is essentially something that discusses or describes both the positives and the negatives, the pros and the cons, the good and the bad of a certain topic, right? So it looks at a topic from the good perspective as well as the bad perspective. So the analytical passages will give you the good versus the bad of a certain topic. Okay. The descriptive passage will just appease your senses. Okay. So it is not doing anything else. The third type of passage is what you call the argumentative passage. Okay. Or what I call the persuasive passage. Now, why am I calling it the persuasive passage? The funda is very, very simple. I call it the persuasive passage because in this case, or in the argumentative passage, the writer is trying to convince you to go the way he is going. So he's essentially trying to persuade you to appreciate what he's saying. So the argumentative passage is very one-sided. Okay. And it is always trying to convince you about the goodness or the badness of something, right? So that's your reading comprehension passages, the three types. Now, please understand that every type of passage, if it is descriptive, if it is analytical, if it is argumentative, would require a different style of reading, correct? So, when you read the passage and you see a lot of adjectives and adverbs and descriptive phrases and all of that, then you understand that this is going to be appeasing your senses. So, this passage, the descriptions are not important. You read what is the important elements and keep the descriptions away, block them so that you know what the passage is. The analytical passage will give you the good side and the bad side of certain things. So look for what is the good points, what are the bad points, do a comparison, and then see where it is going. The argumentative passage will just try to convince you that something is very good, and therefore that will be your argumentative or the persuasive passage. So when you're reading the argumentative passage, you will get many arguments all in the same line, all of them saying that this thing is good or all of them saying that this thing is bad. So it'll either be all negative or be all positive. That's how the argumentative passage lines up. The analytical will always do a comparison or a contrast, so good bad, whatever, it will show you that, right? So these are the different types of passages. Then once we've understood what are the various types of passages, let's also understand what is the sort of length of the passage that you could get. Okay, so the passage size. Now the passage size, guys, for an exam like this could be anything from 250 words to 400 words. Okay, now what does that mean for you and I? Right, because why are we looking at what is the passage size? Now the passage size, if it is 250 to 400 words, and I read at, let's say my reading speed is about 200 words per minute, then I should be able to read this passage of 400 words in 2 minutes. A passage of 250 words in 1 minute, 1.5 minute, passage of 400 words in 2 minutes. So, depending on my reading speed, the time that I will take to read now can go to, let's say, 2 minutes. Okay, so I know what is the time that I will spend on reading. I'll spend another 4 minutes on reading the question. So that's 6 minutes, 4 and 2, 6 minutes. And then another 2, 3 minutes to answer the question. So in about 7 to 8 minutes or 9 minutes, I should be able to do all the questions, the 4 or 5 questions that will be part of your reading comprehension. Okay, so therefore the time taken to read, please pay attention, should not be more than 2 minutes for the passage. So that's the passage size. The time taken to read also depends on the level of difficulty of the passage, or what we call the FK grade. Okay. So there are many ways of measuring whether a passage is easy to read or difficult to read. What we at CL use is something called the FK grade. And the FK grade ranges from 1 to 20, where 1 to 5 is really easy. It's under class 5, so that's really easy. Then 6 to 10 is easy, for this is classes 6 to obviously 7, 8. Then 11 to 15 is sort of moderate. Okay. And then 16 to 20, of course, is difficult. So if it is a passage that would be FK 16 to 20, it will be very difficult. Generally, passages for your exam would be around 6 to 10 or 11 to 15. So you're reading between anything that is easy to moderate. Now, this type of articles you would get in your newspaper, definitely. So the source of the article should be the newspaper. Now, because your courses could be in data analytics and also in economics, so the newspaper could be Economic Times, yeah, or it could be any newspaper, the business and economics pages, right? So that's something that you should be reading. Okay, apart from this, you should read, because it is data analytics, you should read stuff on, let's say, AI, technology, okay, computing, and other related stuff. Okay, I'm not saying this is where all your passages will come from, but I'm saying let's make it a little more, towards this. You could read newspapers, you could read opinions, essays, and other things. Okay, so these are some places from where you should be reading. Of course, a very popular place is Aeon Essays, which is where you read a lot of things from. Or you could just read some newspapers, The Economist, and things like that. Okay, so those should be your good sources of articles. Now, things that you need to keep in mind. So reading comprehension is the most important and time taking part. The goal is not to read faster but smarter. Please understand, you're looking at reading smarter. So when you start a passage, first look at its structure. Try to see what each passage does. Does it introduce, explain, compare, or conclude? What is the purpose of that passage? Notice the writer's opinions, his tone, and how the ideas connect. In class, we will cover how to find what is the tone of a passage, how are the ideas connecting, how is one idea flowing from another idea or flowing to another idea. When you're answering your questions, do not rely only on memory. That doesn't work. Every time, please go back to the passage and cross check your answers. Now, the question types in RC and how to solve them. Well, there are three types of questions that you get. You get the global questions, you get the local questions, and the logical questions. The global questions are all general questions about the passage. This is all generic information. So, therefore, questions like what is the main idea of the passage? What is the title of the passage? Why has the author written this? Purpose of the passage? These are all your global questions, right? The local questions are factual questions or specific detailed questions, right? So they give you exact details about passages and how to answer them. Okay, so you look at these, you look at the question, try and understand what type of question it is. Then let's say if it is a local question, look for the keyword in the question, go to the passage, and then try and find where that keyword is, and a couple of lines above and below, read and solve. The logical questions are all about reasoning. So whatever the author has given, what do you interpret from that? What do you reason from that? What do you extrapolate from that? Right? And then you find your answer for these questions. So the global questions are very general about the passage, everything. Okay? Everything about the passage. The local question is very specific from one paragraph. Okay? And the logical questions, how one fact connects to another fact. What is the relationship? Is there a causal relationship? Is there a correlation? Whatever. How are things connected in the passage? That's your logical question. So that's the third type of question. Now, when you're solving the question, of course, remember, once you found an answer, you must always also use elimination. So look for something which is broad or narrow. Too broad, that means it's very generic. Narrow is very specific, limited to one point, one idea. So that doesn't work. Look for anything that is an extreme option. So has words like will, must, always, right? Cannot, will not, necessarily. Okay, all of these are extreme words, so eliminate them. Anything that is not part of the passage, eliminate. Anything that's mentioned in the passage but not the right answer, eliminate. Anywhere where there is a tone mismatch, eliminate. Passage is positive, your answer is negative, eliminate. So, beast, B, E, A, S, and T. Broad, extreme, alien, sidetrack, tone. See, all of this. If you remember this, this will help you to eliminate all options perfectly well. And that will help you guys. Okay. So remember, Beast. How do you improve your reading comprehension? So make it a habit to read one article or editorial every day. Switch between opinion pieces and factual ones like science or economy topics. After reading, write one line that sums up the main idea. And this habit can actually improve your comprehension and accuracy very quickly. I always ask all my students to do this, that when you're reading a passage, you know, whatever you're reading, just make sure that in one line you write what you have understood. That sometimes is the best thing you can do for yourself. All right, what to read to improve your RC? Like I said, read essays, read articles, read opinion pieces, read stories. So, any sort of fiction would do, any stories. Read opinion pieces, which could be editorials from your newspapers. Always welcome. Essays could come from Aeon essays, which is perfect. You could also read from Project Syndicate, though those are very long, but there's no harm in reading from there also. So projects indicate, but this will may not help in the short run. Articles can come from newspapers, right? They can come from magazines. So articles can come from newspapers, magazines, they can come from websites like aldaily.com, they can come from, any source that you feel is interesting to you. You don't really have to bother about what type of article you're reading. If you are reading something from economics or maybe let's say technology, it helps. But if you're reading something from some other area also, it does not harm you. Articles which are purely philosophy or psychology, I feel may not be part of this exam, and therefore you don't really need to do articles from philosophy, psychology. But other things, natural sciences and general stuff, you're always welcome to read. Current affairs is something that you must always read, whatever's happening in the world around you. So the climate crisis, what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in Europe, all of that you must read. What's happening between India and the US, all of these are very, very relevant things. So do make sure you're reading them. Okay, guys. All right, here's a small passage. I do have it, though I don't think we have time enough because I have another class at 9. But yeah, sure. Let's take a minute and read this passage and we'll do a couple of questions. Okay, so ahead of the 1880 presidential election, 39-year-old lawyer Charles Gettew delivered printed copies of his speech to anyone who would listen. Wow. In 1880, they were printing out copies of speeches. The address was originally an endorsement of the clear favorite going into the Republican National Convention, two-time former President Ulysses S. Grant, but Grant just didn't have the votes to lock down the nomination for the third time. So James A. Garfield, recently elected to represent Ohio as a senator, he would have to suffice. So he went in. Gettew did not care which bearded Ohioan Civil War officer ultimately got the nod. He swapped out Grant's name for Garfield. He believed that his words were so brilliant and persuasive, either candidate could get elected. Garfield ended up winning the presidential race. So that's interesting, huh? James A. Garfield, narrowly defeating Democratic Civil War General Hancock. It was time for Gettew to collect his due. The new president owed him a job, preferably an important diplomatic position abroad. So I hereby make a formal application for the Austrian mission, Gettew wrote to Garfield and Blaine. Feel I have a right to do it on account of my services during the canvass. But the appointment never came through. He did not get through. His application had just a few problems. First, they did not know who he was. The speech that he had so proudly disseminated was disjointed and confused and nonsensical rambling. So these people did not really appreciate it. Moreover, no one in the position of authority had ever heard or read of it. Even if they had, he did not have any relevant experience for a diplomatic posting. And he had never officially worked for the Republican Party or the Garfield campaign. There's a political free agent, and why would somebody in the government do anything like that? So there was no place for him in the administration. But that didn't stop him from making the demands. He wrote and he wrote and he wrote to so many people. He met with Garfield. He had a chance encounter with the First Lady. He dropped by the State Department. Then nothing could happen. So the secretary had to just smash his hopes and say, never bother me again about this consulship. So Gattu could not understand. Clearly, something corrupt in Washington, D.C. was stopping him from getting this job. That was these pesky means irritating. Pesky reformers who had turned their backs on the spoil system and refused to look out for their friends. Angry, incensed means angry by the scandals that had plagued the Grant administration. Reformers in the Republican Party now called for significant changes to the American civil service system, prioritizing merit over loyalty. Gattu believed that Blaine was to blame, but the president was complicit. He retreated to weigh his options and plot his revenge. At least Vice President Chester A. Arthur would never forget his place. After all, his entire career had been that of a cog on the payroll of Roscoe Conklin, the big boss of his state's stalwart political machine. Gattu decided what he had to do. He started stalking the president, and he shot Garfield twice at a Washington railroad station. Garfield died from his injuries more than 2 months later on September 19 after receiving botched medical treatment. My goodness. That's such an interesting and horrible story, right? Now, what does the passage primarily seek to illustrate? So, see, this is a purpose question. What is the author trying to show? How Gattu's misguided sense of entitlement culminated in a tragic act of violence. How Garfield's presidency was marred by deep-rooted corruption? No. How the Republican Party's loyalty system ensured fair reward? No. How internal divisions led to Garfield's? No, it was about how Gattu killed this president, right? So the purpose of the passage was to tell the story of how this person's misguided sense of entitlement ended up in him killing the president. Look at the second question. It can be reasonably inferred from the passage. What do you understand? From the passage. That Blaine secretly sympathized with Gattu's demand? No. Garfield administration was determined to reward personal loyalty over competence? No. The reformers' resistance to patronage caused widespread public anger. It was not about the reformers. Gattu's belief in the spoil system reflected the prevailing norms of his political era, and yes, that would be the correct answer. Okay, which of the following is true of Charles J. Gattu according now? This is a factual or a local question, so you need to identify what would be true. Okay, he was a trained diplomat. He personally knew President Garfield. He believed he was owed a position for his supposed campaign support. He successfully obtained a foreign posting? No. So the best answer here is option number 3, which is he believed he should have gotten this position, right? What is the spoil system? Spoil system essentially means what will you get? So this is a vocabulary question, again local question, so you just needed to identify the right answer. All right, guys, so here are all your answers. You can just very quickly look it up. All right, so that brings me to the end of our session, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat box. I will answer them. Okay, your CL app is available on Android as well as on iOS. You can download from either of them. Maximize your exam prep every minute of it. So download the CL app. Thank you so much, guys. For any further inquiries, you can connect on this number. Every Monday, 8:30 p.m., we've got this session, right? Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.